The courtroom was silent, save for the sound of scribbling reporters and restless whispers from the gallery. All eyes were on Karoline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, who stood at the defendant's table with an air of calm defiance. She wasn't here on official business, but rather for a bizarre and unprecedented personal matter. Her crime, wearing a small gold cross necklace during a press briefing. But before we dive into what happens next, I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from today? Drop a comment below and please like the video. Thank you. Presiding over the case was Judge Arnold Branson, a firebrand known for his controversial rulings on matters of religion in public spaces. Branson had made headlines in recent years for his aggressive interpretation of the separation of church and state, often issuing fines and sanctions for public displays of faith that he deemed inappropriate. But today, he was about to meet his match. "Miss Leavitt," Branson began, his tone dripping with condescension, "the matter before this court is not about personal beliefs. It's about the sanctity of our Constitution and the boundaries it establishes. Your decision to wear a religious symbol during an official press briefing is a clear violation of ethical guidelines. I have no choice but to impose a fine of $10,000. The gallery gasped, but Karoline didn't flinch. Instead, she smiled, a calm, confident smile that seemed to unsettle the judge. She stepped forward, clutching a thin stack of papers in her hand. "Your Honor," she began, her voice steady but piercing. "While I appreciate your interpretation of the First Amendment, I believe you've overlooked several key precedents that render this ruling unconstitutional. If you'll allow me, I'd like to educate this court." Branson raised an eyebrow, clearly taken aback by her audacity. "Miss Leavitt, this is not a classroom. You are not a lawyer. Do not presume to lecture me on constitutional law." "Respectfully, Your Honor," she countered, "I am well versed in constitutional law, having studied it extensively during my tenure at Dartmouth College. And while I may not hold a JD, I'm confident that my understanding surpasses the argument you've presented here." The room erupted in murmurs. The press leaned forward, their pens flying across their notepads. Even Branson's clerk appeared intrigued. Karoline walked to the podium, holding up the stack of papers. "The case you've referenced, Lemon v. Kurtzman, was significantly narrowed in Kennedy v. Bremerton School District just last year. That decision explicitly upheld the right of public officials to express their personal faith, including the wearing of religious symbols, as long as it does not coerce others or constitute government endorsement of religion." Branson blinked. "That case pertained to prayer, not—" "Not true," Karoline interrupted, her voice firm. "Justice Gorsuch's opinion clearly stated that personal expressions of faith by government employees are protected under the First Amendment. My necklace is a private expression, not an official statement of policy. If anything, your ruling violates my constitutional rights." The judge's face reddened, and for a moment, he seemed at a loss for words. But Karoline wasn't done. "Furthermore, your imposition of a fine is punitive and discriminatory. It singles out religious expression in a way that is neither neutral nor justified under the law. I've drafted a motion to dismiss, which I'd be happy to file now." The courtroom was electric. Judge Branson, clearly flustered, called for a recess. Reporters rushed to tweet updates, and social media exploded with the news. Karoline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, had just delivered a legal masterclass to a sitting judge. When the court reconvened, Branson was visibly subdued. "After reviewing the arguments presented," he said, avoiding Karoline's gaze, "I find that this case does not meet the standard for a violation of constitutional principles. The fine is rescinded, and the case is dismissed." Karoline smiled graciously, nodding as the gavel struck. As she exited the courthouse, reporters swarmed her, shouting questions. She paused, turning to face the cameras. "This isn't about me," she said. "It's about standing up for our rights, no matter who challenges them. Faith is not a crime, and neither is knowing the law." The story dominated the news cycle for weeks. Branson faced growing criticism for his heavy-handed rulings, while Karoline was hailed as a hero for religious freedom. Some even speculated she might consider a career in law or a run for higher office. Whatever her future held, one thing was clear. She was far more than a press secretary. She was a force to be reckoned with. As Karoline Leavitt left the courthouse, her phone buzzed incessantly. Friends, family, and colleagues flooded her inbox with messages of congratulations and disbelief. She was still processing the whirlwind of the day when her chief of staff leaned in, a look of astonishment on his face. "Karoline," he said, lowering his voice despite the cacophony of reporters outside. "The president is on the line." She froze for a moment, gripping the phone he handed her. "President Trump?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He nodded. "He's waiting." Karoline stepped into a quiet corner of the courthouse lobby, bracing herself as she pressed the phone to her ear. "Miss Leavitt," came the unmistakable voice of President Donald Trump, commanding yet strangely warm. "I just saw the news. Absolutely incredible. You handled that clown of a judge like a pro." "Thank you, Mr. President," Karoline replied, steady but still a little surprised. "I was just standing up for what's right." "You didn't just stand up," Trump said, his tone growing animated. "You *dominated*. You turned that courtroom into a seminar. Believe me, I've been around legal experts my whole life, and I can tell when someone knows their stuff. You're a genius. People are calling me already. Did you see what Karoline did? They love it." Karoline let out a small laugh. "I appreciate your kind words, sir, but really it was about defending the Constitution and ensuring faith isn't penalized." "Exactly. And that's why you're so good at your job. You don't just talk, you deliver. Now listen, this is going to go big. People are fired up about this. Religious freedom, constitutional rights, it's all people are talking about. You've become a symbol of something much bigger. And I want to make sure you know I've got your back, 100%. "Thank you, Mr. President," Karoline said, her confidence returning. "That means a lot to me." Trump's voice softened slightly, taking on a more thoughtful tone. "Look, Karoline, I'm serious when I say this. You've got a bright future ahead of you. People are going to want to see more of you, hear more from you. Keep doing what you're doing, and there's no limit to where you can go." Karoline felt a surge of determination. "I'll do my best, Mr. President. Thank you for your support." Before hanging up, Trump added one last line, delivered with the signature flourish that made headlines. "And hey, if that judge ever gives you trouble again, just let me know. We'll remind him who's really in charge." The call ended, and Karoline stood there for a moment, the weight of the day sinking in. This wasn't just about a courtroom win anymore. It was about a movement, a message, and a fight for values that resonated far beyond the walls of the courthouse. As she stepped back outside, reporters shouted new questions at her. "Did the president call you?" "How do you feel about becoming the face of religious freedom?" Karoline paused, gave a small, confident smile, and replied, "Today wasn't about me. It was about defending the principles that make this country great, and I'll continue to do that, no matter the challenges." The crowd erupted in cheers as she walked to her car, her cross necklace gleaming under the afternoon sun. As Karoline's car pulled away from the courthouse, her phone lit up with a mix of messages, calls, and social media notifications. News channels were replaying the courtroom exchange on a loop. Back at the White House, Karoline found herself met with a standing ovation from staffers. The press briefing room, the very place where the controversy had begun, was now buzzing with reporters eagerly awaiting her next appearance. She barely had time to settle in her office before her chief of staff entered with a clipboard and an urgent look. "You're scheduled for Hannity tonight," he said. "Fox News wants you in the 9 p.m. slot. But CNN is also pushing for an exclusive interview. Anderson Cooper, prime time. And then there's Newsmax." "Slow down," Karoline said, raising her hand. "I'll handle the interviews, but this isn't about feeding a media frenzy. We need to stay focused on the bigger picture. It's about ensuring no one else faces what I did today. Let's prioritize the networks that can help amplify that message." Her chief of staff nodded, impressed by her calm amidst the chaos. "Understood. By the way, Senator Josh Hawley called. He's introducing a bill tomorrow to protect public officials' rights to personal religious expression. He wants you to join him at the press conference." Karoline leaned back in her chair, momentarily stunned by how quickly the situation was escalating. "Tell him I'll be there," she said. The day flew by in a blur of meetings, phone calls, and preparations for her evening media appearances. By the time she sat down for her interview with Sean Hannity, Karoline was poised and ready. "Karoline," Hannity began, his tone reverent, "what you did today wasn't just a win in the courtroom. It was a win for millions of Americans who feel their faith is under attack. How do you see this moment in the larger context of our country's future?" Karoline smiled, her voice steady as she replied, "Sean, this isn't about me. It's about standing up for the principles that make our nation strong. Faith, freedom, and the rule of law. If we allow those principles to be eroded, we risk losing what makes America exceptional. Today's victory was just one step. There's still so much work to do." The interview went viral, sparking debates across the political spectrum. Conservative leaders praised her as a champion of religious freedom, while critics accused her of blurring the lines between church and state. Yet, what no one could deny was her ability to command the national spotlight. The following day, Karoline joined Senator Hawley on Capitol Hill for the unveiling of the Religious Freedom in Public Service Act. The press conference was packed, with journalists from around the globe eager to cover the story. As she took the podium, Karoline delivered a speech that would later be hailed as one of the defining moments of her career. "This isn't about politics," she said, her voice ringing clear. "It's about ensuring that every American, no matter their faith or beliefs, can live and serve with dignity. The cross I wear isn't just a symbol of my faith. It's a reminder of the rights and freedoms we all hold dear, and I'll fight to protect those freedoms for everyone." The crowd erupted into applause, and for a brief moment it felt like the nation had found a rare point of unity. But behind the scenes, forces were gathering to challenge Karoline's rising influence. Legal advocacy groups began filing countersuits, alleging that her actions set a dangerous precedent. Political opponents dug into her past, searching for anything they could use against her. Unfazed, Karoline met every challenge head-on, her legal prowess and unwavering conviction earning her both admirers and enemies. Her days were now filled with battles on multiple fronts: courtrooms, cable news, and the political arena. President Trump, sensing her growing popularity, invited her to join him on the campaign trail. "Karoline," he said during a private meeting in the Oval Office, "you're a star. The people love you. We've got to use this momentum. I want you on the stage at my next rally." And so, Karoline found herself stepping onto the national stage in a way she had never imagined. As she took the microphone at a packed rally in Texas, the crowd roared, chanting her name. She smiled, lifting her cross necklace slightly as she began to speak. "This isn't just my fight," she said. "It's our fight, for faith, for freedom, for the future of this great nation." The crowd erupted, and in that moment it became clear. Karoline Leavitt was no longer just a press secretary. She was a movement,